Yo, what's up? Amateur Lore here, and it's been a while since I've done a football video. And when I tell you I miss doing them, I mean it. So it's good to be back covering some more low-key squads. Oh yeah, real quick, shout out to my Florida Gators. So proud of y'all boys for bringing the title back to the swamp. I'm going to be making a documentary on them soon, just a heads up. It's going to take a while though because I want to cover them thoroughly from the start of the season to the finish. Anyway, be sure to like and subscribe, but let's jump right into the video. Alright, so the first team we're talking about today in this video is the Houston Cougars. I really had a whole plethora of different seasons I could have chosen from because the Houston Cougars have really been one of the more dominant Group of 5 college football schools, having 5 seasons of 10 plus wins in the last 20 years. And I know 10 plus wins are not everything, but to me a 10-win season is the sign of a great season. It means you won about 75% of your games that year and were most likely ranked or competing for an AP Top 25 spot. And Houston has a decent amount in recent history. And I think that is a big part of why when the Big 12 was expanding, they looked at Houston to fill up one of their free spots. As well as the SEC gobbling up all the good schools in the Big 12 and Houston having a brand new stadium. A new stadium always helps. Anyway, I know some of y'all are wondering which Houston team we're covering. So while I could have went with the Case Keenum-led squad back in 2011, I decided to take a look at the 2015 Houston Cougars for this video. And a big part of that has to do with the fact that this 2015 team would finish the season with their highest AP poll ranking since the 1979 college football season. So I hope y'all understand why I chose this squad. Going back in time to 2015, I was taking a look at some of the media predictions for the American Athletic Conference, and most outlets had Houston coming in 3rd place overall, finishing behind Cincinnati and Memphis. A big part of that had to do with their returning roster, as they were bringing back one of the conference's best running backs, as well as one of the best ball hawks in the entire country, regardless of conference. And who could forget about their new coaching hire, an offensive guru coming over from the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. I think it was safe to say there was some hype around this 2015 Houston Cougars football team, but I don't think anybody really expected them to have their best season in the last 30 plus years. But that's a very short little intro, so let's take a look at some of the key figures a part of this Houston Cougar football team. Leading the team in only his first year up to that point at head coach, we got Tom Herman, and I have not heard that name in a while. If any of you were wondering where he is nowadays, he's spending his time down in my area of Florida, coaching at Florida Atlantic. They haven't been too good with him, but at least he's enjoying the weather, I hope. Swinging over to the most important position in sports, at quarterback, this team was led by Greg Ward Jr., who'd passed for just over 2,800 yards with 17 touchdowns, but would also put in work on soil, rushing for a team-high 1,108 yards with 21 tutties. Homie was cooking up this year. Damn. Moving over to the actual running back, Kenneth Farrow, while he wouldn't finish with better stats than his quarterback, he still put in work, rushing for just shy of a bando with 12 touchdowns. For the last key player on the offensive side of the ball, we got DeMarcus Ayers, who'd catch the ball 98 times, which was a conference best for 1,222 yards and 6 touchdowns. There's a couple of dudes I want to shout out on the defensive side of the ball before we jump into the regular season. Starting with linebacker Stephen Taylor, who'd lead the conference in sacks with 10, as well as adding 2 picks and 2 forced fumbles. Safety Adrian McDonald, who'd finished the season with 4 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles. And finally, at cornerback, William Jackson III, who'd picked the ball off 5 times with 2 of those going all the way to the house, and also deflecting 23 passes, which would lead the entire nation. Opening up the 2015 college football season, Houston would have a tune-up game to start the year off, as they would be matched up versus Tennessee Tech. As I said, this was a tune-up game, so there really isn't much to speak of from this match. Houston would easily win as expected 52-24, but more importantly, they would spend the game getting live action reps to prepare for their next game, where the competition would go up to a whole nother level. The Cougars were getting a huge test to start the season only in week 2, as they would be traveling all the way to Kentucky to face off against the Louisville Cardinals, who were being led by a young and raw Lamar Jackson. But let's not forget, a raw Lamar Jackson is still easily the best athlete on the gridiron, and a better football player than 90% of the NCAA. So the Cougars defense were going to have their hands full dealing with this Louisville offense. Coach Tom Herman knew this Houston squad had a chance to be special this year, and the only way for him to know if his team was legit was to see if they could overcome their first real obstacle of the season, the Louisville Cardinals.
3rd down, and short again. Ward going towards the end zone, and it's a touch.
Show that he can win game after game.
Going deep. Double coverage on the receiver. Led 14-10 at halftime. His kickoff is into the end zone, and Houston will bring it out. Uh-oh. Wilson gains midfield. Wilson might go. Touchdown Cougars.
Touchdown, Mr. Wilson.
Ward Jr. gets away from Rankins and completes it near midfield. And down to the 35. 3rd and 6. Ward has to run and throw to the end zone, and it's a touchdown. Linnell Bonner going to the end zone, and it's caught. DeMarcus
I
Ayers.
told you to look for him. I gave him a heads up. They didn't listen to me. This kid is going to be...
Houston would narrowly escape Louisville, leaving Kentucky with the win, taking down the Cardinals 34-31. This game was extremely back and forth and could have gone either way. Houston's defense really stepped up this game, picking Lamar Jackson off twice and forcing 4 total turnovers. We also can't forget about Houston's special teams, as I showed the highlight of one of their massive kick returns for a touchdown, but there was another giant kickoff return that I didn't show. But just know Houston was making plays on special teams, flipping the field a couple of times. And before we move on, I can't forget about quarterback Greg Ward, who was slinging the pill around, passing for 236 yards with 3 touchdowns, with the most important of those tuds coming in the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Houston was now 2-0, and one of their more tougher games of the season was out of the way. Their next matchup would be another tune-up game where they would face off against Texas State right before conference play would start. Just like the first tune-up game, Houston would blow out their opponent, winning convincingly 59-14 against Texas State, setting their record at 3-0 before conference play was set to start. The Cougars were opening up American Athletic play with a home game versus SMU and 2 games on the road at Tulane and UCF. This team was looking like they were going to be this year's Group of 5 at-large team if they could keep this high level of football up. So there was no room to slip up during this stretch to begin conference play.
Ward Jr. Touchdown, Houston. Here's Farrell. Adding to his totals. Kenneth Farrell the cut. And away he goes into the end zone for a Houston touchdown.
Davis looking for Sutton. Touchdown, SMU. After the fumble recovery. Right back to Farrell. Right back up the middle. And right back into the end zone. And the clock is moving. Ward Jr. looking to do it himself. And he does. 3rd and short. Ward's going to keep it himself. Gets a great block from Farrow and can stroll into the end zone.
From the 49-yard line, Ward is going to throw. Has time. Home run ball. Tulane defender slips and falls wide open for the touchdown.
Uncomfortable place for any coach to be.
Zach Block on to punt this one. Ayers, look at the move by Ayers. 1 man to beat, that's the punter. See you later. He's done it again. Touchdown, Houston. What a night for
I'd say that's an explosive play. 44 yards on that catch. And again, right back to the outside. And how about the throws from Holman? Oh, this is it fumbled and recovered by Brandon Wilson. He stripped it right out of his hands. And Wilson goes down the sideline. Wilson is going to get the touchdown for Houston. Holman has looked great too. He's 6 of 8. And those 2 incompletions are the 2 drop passes. Now going deep on the sideline. And Payne adjusts, he makes the catch, and he's got the touchdown. And Jackson scoots through the hole. We saw this earlier, we see it again. Touchdown, Ryan Jackson, 29 yards.
The Cougars would go a perfect 4-0 through the stretch of conference play, and yes, I forgot to include that they were matching up against Tulane. Houston would look extremely impressive to start off American play, taking down Tulsa 38-24. Quarterback Greg Ward was making plays all game, passing for 274 yards and rushing for 182 with 3 touchdowns. Tulsa was in this game for a while, making it competitive, but Houston would start to pull away in the 4th, putting the game away. Next up was SMU, and the Mustangs were giving Houston fits for the entire first half. But after halftime adjustments, the Cougars defense was starting to buck up, only allowing 7 points for the rest of the game. Also another shout out to Greg Ward, he was eating this game on the ground, punching it into the end zone 4 times. The next 2 matchups during this stretch would be blowouts, as Houston would defeat Tulane 42-7 and UCF 49-10, bringing their record on the season to 7-0 and their ranking in the latest polls to the 8-team spot. Houston was really starting to make waves around the college football world, and looking like the favorite out of the group of 5 schools to make a push for the New Year's 6 bowl game. While their chances was high, it wasn't no secret that their schedule was backloaded, as up until now they hadn't faced too much competition, but to close out the season, they had 3 ranked games remaining. For some reason, Houston had a random game against Vanderbilt in the middle of the season. If anyone knows why this matchup was here, let me know down below in the comments. Not really too much to cover from this game. The Houston Cougars dominated and would take down the Commodores 34-0. Their next game, however, had a little more at stake as they were matching up against the conference preseason favorites, the Cincinnati Bearcats. This game would be back and forth, and after 2 quarters of war, the score would be tied at 14-all. Houston would roar out of halftime, playing with a sense of urgency, knowing that they had no room to slip up if they wanted to make a big bowl game, scoring back-to-back touchdowns with the safety on top of that to extend their lead, and from there their defense would bend but not break, helping secure the win over Cincinnati 33-30. Houston was now 9-0, but there was no time to rest, as their next game would arguably be their biggest so far of the season, as they would be hosting the 21st ranked Memphis Tigers. And this is a little spoiler, but Houston's starting quarterback Greg Ward would get injured just before halftime, missing the rest of the game. So the Cougars were already climbing an uphill battle with backup quarterback Kyle Postman in the game. Could he hold down the fort to keep Houston's magical season alive?
From TDECU Stadium, they're expecting a packed house tonight, as undefeated number 24 Houston hosts number 21 Memphis in a pivotal and critical game. Houston at one point has some friends and family and a connection over midfield, still on his feet. That's Mayhew from 42. And Memphis is on the first and 10. Little play action fake, has a man downfield. It's caught by Hurd, and Hurd has a nice play fake again, has his tight end Cross, and Cross is going to score. Touchdown, Tiger. This team's trying to keep pace with Navy, who won earlier today against SMU. Complete to Dorcius, and a great move. Still on his feet, got a blocker ahead of him. Dorcius. Dominating. Touchdown, Tigers. Ward in trouble and sacked.
On that philosophy, because he is the guy that runs that offense.
As you see him able to walk off the field.
Stop this drive in its tracks.
Taking a shot up top, has a man open. Caught. Touchdown. Third and short coming up. Postma looking to pass, busted play. Complete to Chance Allen. Down to the 41. Farrell, touchdown Cougars. Here the second half take flight. Lynch hands it off, and they just did. They've been in the end zone a couple of times too. On 3rd and 3, wide open. Jones will get to the end zone. Houston has to play Navy still. Memphis takes on UConn. Postma downfield. Caught by Ayers in a 6-yard gain. Farrell puts his hat down and muscles his way natural under center or running the football. They put it on the ground, and Houston may have recovered. There's the takeaway. Blitz coming. Postma under duress. Got rid of it. Caught for the first down, but there's a flag down on the play. Chance Allen made the play at the 7.
Holding. Defense. Number 16.
Low snap. Into the end zone. Incomplete. No flag in 10. Returns the conference race. Lynch picked off by Roberts. And the Cougars with life. Postma hands it off. Webb again. Touchdown, Houston. Postma looks his way and finds him wide open. How do you not have somebody on air? Game time score. Postma miraculously stays on his feet. Kyle Postma into Memphis territory. Little option here. Postma keeps it. Touchdown Cougars! Tie game! Little pressure coming. Can't take a sack here. And he wisely throws it away under duress. For the win! Pushed it right! And Houston escapes.
This game looked really ugly for Houston for the first 3 quarters. There was a point in the 4th where the Cougars were down by 20 points to Memphis. And what was even crazier to me was that when Houston looked like they were starting to gain momentum after a turnover, they would turn the ball over on downs, leaving with 0 points after their trip to the red zone. But this is why I love making these videos, because I never knew about this insane comeback. So watching Houston come back from being down by 20 when they really should have lost this game was incredible. Major shout out to Kyle Postma. It wasn't pretty, but he would make play after play late in this game and would cap off this magical night with the game-winning touchdown on a 7-yard run. We still got 2 more teams to cover in this video, and this section is getting kind of long, so I'm going to somewhat speed through the end of the season. Houston would lose their next game to UConn 20-17. A large part of that was due to them turning the ball over 4 times and their starting quarterback Greg Ward being injured still. But he returned to finish out the season as they would blow out the 15th ranked Navy midshipmen 52-31, setting up a matchup versus 22nd ranked Temple Owls in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. The conference championship game would be a slugfest that would see Houston taking control of the game early, as they would be going into halftime up 17-3 on the Owls. The Cougars would slow down in the second half, but at this point they had built enough of a lead to just kill clock and play the field position game, and that's exactly what they would do. And it would work out to perfection, taking down Temple 24-13, bringing the American Athletic Conference title to Houston and putting their final record on the season at 12-1, and their ranking at the 18th spot in the final regular season polls. But hey, their season wasn't done just yet. Because of their amazing year, Houston was rewarded with the Peach Bowl bid, where they would face off against the 9th-ranked Florida State Seminoles. Only thing that was left to do to cap off this incredible year was bringing the Peach Bowl trophy back to Houston.
Here's Ward on the quarterback run to the end zone. Touchdown, Houston.
Become the unquestioned leader.
McGuire hit, throws it up for grabs, and it is caught. Rudolph shoves the defender. A 20-yarder at Cougars. Ward will throw. Out of the backfield is Wilson. He's inside the 30, near the 20 before he's drilled by James. Offensive play. They're in the red zone now. And here comes a reverse, and a reverse pass. Ayers to the end zone. Wide open man. Touchdown. Chance.
Just going to run in between the tackles. You got to get to the outside.
Here's Ward heading to the end zone. His second touch. Ball on the 17-yard line. Here comes Ramsey, and they leave the receiver wide open. Chance Allen into the end zone. Touchdown.
Houston would take down Florida State in the Peach Bowl 38-24. This game was all Cougars as they took the lead in the first quarter and would never look back, capping off an amazing season with a huge win, putting their final record on the 2015 college football season at 13-1 and their final ranking in the AP polls at the 8th spot. Overall, what a season from Houston, and definitely one of the more memorable ones in this program's long history. Leaving Houston and hopping in our cars for about a 4-hour drive, we head over to one of the GOATs of the Group of 5 schools, Texas Christian University, or TCU. Just like Houston, there are so many different years to choose from, and honestly, maybe even double the choices, as from 2000 until the year they would join the Big 12, the Horned Frogs would win 10 games or more 9 times, which to me, that level of consistency is insane, regardless of conference. So I know y'all are probably wondering, which team are we going to look at today? Well, I had to go with the 2010 Horned Frogs, in my opinion, one of the greatest Group of 5 teams ever. The 2010 Horned Frogs were coming off 2 absolute elite seasons, where they would see themselves winning 11 games in 2008, finishing the year ranked at the 7th spot in the polls in 2009, where they would finish with 12 wins, and would be ranked at the 6th spot to finish the season. So coming into the 2010 college football season, I don't think it was a stretch to say this Horned Frog squad was expected to be a BCS buster. And to back that claim up, going back in time to some of the 2010 Mountain West preseason predictions, majority of the Mountain West media outlets had TCU finishing first. And I mean, I think that was a pretty cold take because they were starting the season with their highest preseason ranking in program history up to that point, as they were starting at the 6th spot in the country, which for 2010 is kind of insane to see a Group of 5 school ranked this high to start the year. That was an extremely short intro, so now let's take a look at some of the dudes making noise all around the Fort Worth area. Starting with the man running the show from the sidelines, in his 10th year up to that point, head coach Gary Patterson, who had this Horned Frogs offense and defense playing elite ball, as both sides of the ball would finish ranked in the top 5 to finish the year. And I've said this before, and I'll say this again, to me he's one of the best college football coaches of all time. Let me know how y'all feel about that down below in the comments. Sliding over to the stud calling the signals at quarterback, we have the TCU legend Andy Dalton, who threw for just over 2,800 yards with 27 touchdowns. And those numbers might seem kind of pedestrian, but this team was blowing everyone out, so there really wasn't a need to pass the rock like that. Moving over to the ground game, the team leader was running back Ed Wesley, who'd rushed for just over a band on the ground with 11 touchdowns. And finally, to round out the offense, we got Josh Boyce at the receiver spot. He'd lead the team in receiving yards with 646 yards and 6 touchdowns. Before we move on, shout out to the cornerback TJ Johnson. He was locked down all year, finishing with 3 interceptions, and his play was so outstanding he'd be voted as an All-American at the end of the season. To open up the 2010 college football season, TCU will be playing in one of their biggest games of the year already. I don't think it was a stretch to say that the folks at TCU thought this squad had a legit chance to make the Natty. I know that sounds like a stretch because Group of 5 schools never get a fair shot, especially back then, when the BCS would do anything they could to keep Group of 5 schools from shining. But this year, TCU would start off ranked in the top 6, and their first game of the season was a neutral site matchup versus the 24th ranked Oregon State Beavers. This matchup was huge, and if the Horned Frogs could win, they'd be putting themselves in a great spot to make history this year.
And back deep, James Rogers, one of the captains. They'd like to keep it out of his hands. Jordan Poyer is back there with it. So it's TCU and Oregon State, the boys of fall, as we're set from Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. Here we go. In the shotgun as Dalton's back to throw again. Fires it right into the hands of Lance Mitchell. Mitchell back to the 32-yard line. Second down and 8. Cats in the shotgun. Set to throw. Gonna go to the end zone. Touchdown. James. First down, play action. Dalton wants it all. Deep ball, got a man, got him in stride. On the run all the way to the 10 is here as well. He's going to run. I don't know if it was by design, but he heads to the pylon. Touchdown. And they're going to fake the punt. The throw's complete. First down and a bunch more. Cats wants it all. Going to the corner, touchdown, Jordan. Second down and 7. Play action, Dalton, plenty of time, fires near side. What a catch, inside the 20. Curley in motion on a second down and goal. Bootleg, throw to the end zone, wide open. Curley, field where maybe Jeremy Curley can get a return out of one of these. Here he comes on the fly at the 43. Curley down the sideline. Oh, he would have been gone. Inside the 10. Wesley again, weaving his way. Touchdown. Field, the corner's half over. Dalton throws, and it's intercepted. There's the one mistake. Quiz again, tiptoes in, touchdown. Third down and long 2. He rides it and keeps it and scores it. Touchdown. High snap. There's plenty of time. Got away from the rush, now running for his life, and down he goes. Whoa, that's not what you want to do. Katz is going to kick it out of the back of the end zone. Safety. Here's Dalton. Didn't get the first down this time, but he's within about a yard of it. As we check in with Reese Davis. Reese? All right, Reese, thanks. The final seconds ticking off. Gary Patterson's team goes to 1-0, the number 6 team in the country. Tough loss, number 24, Oregon State and Mike Riley.
The TCU Horned Frogs would get punched in the mouth early as the Oregon State Beavers would jump out the gate hanging 7 on TCU after a turnover from Andy Dalton. Credit to TCU, they would respond, and this would happen a couple of times throughout this match. I believe the lead would change something like 4 times, which is kind of crazy because TCU should have blew the Beavers out, as they would outgain them by 200 total yards and double Oregon State in first downs and time of possession. Maybe a big reason for the Beavers staying around in this game was the fact that they won the turnover battle 2-0, but that wouldn't be enough as TCU would win 30-21, bringing their record to 1-0 and jumping them up 2 spots in the polls to the 4th spot in the country. And before we move on, I just have to say, I really miss these huge Week 1 Power 5 versus non-Power 5 school matchups. I don't know, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I feel like we don't see Week 1 games like this anymore. So after TCU's huge win to start the season, they would keep the momentum rolling, easily taking down Tennessee Tech 62-7, Baylor 45-10, and SMU 41-24. There really isn't too much to talk about during this little stretch of ball before the Horned Frogs would begin Mountain West play, because they were so dominant and in control throughout all of these early games. Now sitting at 4-0, moving back 1 spot to the 5th spot in the country, and if you're wondering why they would drop in the rankings, my guess is because back then, if everything didn't go perfect for you as a group of 5 team during the weekend, then for absolutely no reason you were liable to get bumped down a bit. I don't agree with it, but it's just the way things were back then. TCU was opening up Mountain West play with the game on the road at Colorado State. The Rams defense would hold TCU from reaching the end zone for 2 quarters, but coming out of halftime, TCU would remember they were a top 5 team, scoring 21 unanswered points to end the game. And you might have noticed I didn't mention the Rams doing anything on offense, and that's because they didn't. The Horned Frogs would shut them down, making them put up a donut in the score column, winning against the Rams 27-0. TCU is now about to embark on their first real stretch of conference play, more specifically a 3-game home stretch, where they would face off against Wyoming, BYU, and Air Force. I know at this point in the season, the Horned Frogs were definitely looking ahead to their game on November 6th. Why? Well, on that night, TCU was set to face off against the Utah Utes, who was ranked just as high as them. So if everything were to pan out, then that matchup would have major BCS implications. But before we could even get to that, TCU would have to handle this little stretch of conference play.
And that was fun. Heard some incredible stories. Dalton fires, end zone, Johnson!
Great facilities to help that recruiting.
Dalton rolls right, throws, end zone!
Again, the soft coverage. This is all about keeping the ball in front of you if you're BYU.
Comes the blitz. They pick it up. Boyce is alone. Touchdown! Dalton fires on target. Boyce dancing towards the end zone. Dalton throws this one out wide. Touchdown!
Work left to right across your dial. Logan Brock in motion. Keeper for Dalton running right to the 1, to the goal line. Give it to him. Dalton scores. Hit the horn early.
The Horned Frogs would play elite football during this 3-game stretch, only allowing a total of 10 points, starting off with a shutout win against Wyoming 45-0. Andy Dalton diced his defense up for 270 yards with 3 touchdowns. Next up was BYU, who would get routed 31-3. And finally, to end this stretch of Mountain West play for the Horned Frogs, a 38-7 win against Air Force. TCU is now sitting with a record of 8-0 and will be sitting around the number 4 spot in the latest AP polls, with a chance to increase their ranking as they had a game coming up on the road at the 5th-ranked Utah Utes. But before that, there was a trap game TCU had to play in first against the UNLV Rebels. I don't know what the Rebels head coach had cooked up with his pregame speech because he had his team ready to play and they were giving TCU trouble. I'm just kidding, I had to make this somewhat suspenseful. In reality, TCU would step on UNLV like dog shit, winning 48-6. This 2010 TCU football team did not like playing in close games, I swear. All they did was blow teams out. Pause. It was finally time, the biggest matchup of the season for the Horned Frogs, a road game against the 5th-ranked Utah Utes. After TCU would give belt to ass to the Rebels, they would move up another spot in the polls to the 3rd spot, setting up a 3v5 game for the conference and a BCS bowl game bid. Real quick, y'all let me know down below in the comments, is this matchup the highest 2 group of 5 teams have been ranked while facing off against each other? Because I've never seen a non-Power 5 game with so much at stake. But here we were, the 3rd ranked Horned Frogs versus the 5th ranked Utah Utes.
Around him in position to succeed.
TCU, like Utah, will spread the field as Dalton, the senior, is checking at the line. Ed Weasley, the tailback, lined alongside Dalton in the shotgun. Play action pass. They throw near sideline into seam of the ball motion on 3rd down. There's a pump. Got single coverage going up top. Touchdown, TCU. They usually pass the ball on 1st down. Dalton on the rollout. Play action up top. He had man coverage and breaking a tackle and boys. He's off and running. 15, 10, 5, touchdown. And it's a big 3rd down for Utah. Down 14. Jordan steps up in the pocket, has room to run. Watch out, backside. Ball is out. This game slip away. Curley is throwing the football. Touchdown, bag of tricks. Shotgun, Jordan Wynn. Pressure from the corner, stands up in that pocket, took a hit, picked. It's picked off. Tanner Brock has a clear route to the end zone. Inside the five. Whittingham said the importance was to take this opening drive and punch one in. Outside and walking in. Starts this drive, their 2nd here in the 2nd half. From the 20-yard line, slingshot it. There's a pitch and a catch, and the ball is out. My goodness. Devontae. Jason. 6 of 9 on 3rd down conversions for TCU. Dalton in the end zone. Did he have possession? Touchdown! San Diego State when you finish up at home against Brigham Young.
Yeah, but you can also make the argument that they played against Iowa State and dominated them.
And look at that. The ball is fumbled and a touchdown. Wayman James, right place, right time. Paul Hall lost it. Utah overran the ball. And TCU finds the end zone again.
When it rains, it pours.
TCU versus Utah would be all Horned Frogs from the start of the game until the finish. TCU would put up a total of 558 yards compared to Utah's 199, as well as forcing the Utes to turn the ball over 4 times. There was even a play near the end of the game where TCU would fumble the ball on offense, recover it, and still score a touchdown. The ball was literally bouncing in TCU's favor the entire game, so it shouldn't be a surprise that the Horned Frogs would come out on top 47-7. And oh yeah, before I forget, shout out to the Red Rocket Andy Dalton. Birdie would pass for 335 yards and 3 touchdowns, making Utah look like a middle school defense all night. TCU was now sitting at 10-0, and even after that dominant win against the 5th ranked team in the country, the Horned Frogs wouldn't move up any spots at all in the latest polls. TCU had 2 games left remaining on their schedule. First, the Aztecs in New Mexico. Against San Diego State, TCU would be on upset alert for like 10 minutes, as the Aztecs would jump out to an early 14-point lead. But right after that, the Horned Frogs would score 34 unanswered points, finishing the game winning 40-35. And to end the regular season against New Mexico, not too much would change, as TCU would spank the Lobos 66-17, putting the Horned Frogs' final record on the regular season at 12-0 and their ranking in the polls at the 3rd spot. TCU would fall just short of making the BCS National Championship game, but there was 2 undefeated Power 5 schools playing in it, so they never really had a chance, unless one of those schools stumbled during the year. While a natty would have been cool, playing in the Rose Bowl is the next best thing, and TCU will be matched up against the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin was the only thing left remaining in TCU's way of capping off an historical season, but no one would remember it if they lost and couldn't finish the job.
First carry for ball, huge hole, explodes, 40, 35, and a field goal. Badgers strike first. Carry the ball 4 times, throws it again, pump fake, goes back down the middle to the end zone. Touchdown, Horned Frogs. Play action again. Got a man wide open. Down to the 1. That massive offensive line. Here he is. Touchdown, Wisconsin regains. They're the full house backfield, basically, and pump going deep again. He's got him inside the full. They can still get a first down here. Here comes Dalton again for the end zone. Touchdown, TCU. Dalton from the pocket has another first down, and breaking free, Wesley, the running back. His biggest is the lead fullback for him, and Shivers gets the call and barges on into the end zone. Touchdown, TCU. Clay again. Bust free. Brought down close to the... Back with ball. Tries to get the edge. Dives for the end zone. Touchdown. 2 points. Deflected. There it is. Andy Dalton and TCU win the Rose Bowl. One for the ages. A failed two-point conversion.
The Horned Frogs would cap off their amazing season with a nail-biter win in the Rose Bowl, 21-19 versus the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin had a chance late to tie the game on a 2-point conversion, but the Horned Frogs defense would stand tall, holding on to secure the win for TCU, putting their final record on the 2010 college football season at 13-0, and their final rankings in the AP polls at the 2nd spot. I really wonder what would have happened if TCU would have gotten the chance to play in the Natty. Could they have maybe somehow won? Who knows, but regardless, this season will go down as one of the greatest from a Group of 5 school ever. Okay, leaving Texas, we head over to West Virginia to cover the last team up in this video, the Marshall Thundering Herd. Marshall is, in my opinion, one of the more forgotten, better non-Power 5 schools, as they have strung together some pretty elite stretches of football. For example, from the years 1997 to 2002, Marshall would win 10-plus games 5 times, with their best season during that stretch coming in 1999, where the Thundering Herd would go 13-0 and finish the season ranked inside of the top 10. I also had to mention that Marshall had 2 future NFL first-round draft picks playing quarterback for them during this stretch, as Chad Pennington would go 18th overall to the Jets in 2000, and Brian Leftwich, who would go 7th overall in 2003 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You may be wondering, are we covering a team from that stretch of dominance? And while I considered it and thought it might be a fun idea, I ultimately decided to go with something a little more modern, which takes us to the year 2014. The 2014 Marshall squad was coming off of a pretty good year, winning 10 games in 2013 with the Military Bowl game trophy added to their trophy case. The offense was pretty elite this year, averaging 42.1 points per game, which would be 7th best in the nation. And while this definitely was a great season for Marshall, there was one thing missing: the Conference USA Championship. In 2013, Marshall would fall just short to Rice in the Conference USA Championship game, so definitely one of the huge goals for this Marshall squad was avenging their CUSA Championship game loss. Going back in time looking at some of the Conference USA preseason predictions for the 2014 college football season, majority of the media had Marshall penciled in to win the Conference USA Championship, which I could see why the squad was favored to win it all, as they were returning the most talent by far in this conference. And just to give you an idea of how talented the squad was, both the offensive and defensive preseason players of the year for the Conference USA were both from Marshall. That was a short little intro, so now let's take a look at some of the key members a part of this 2014 Marshall football team. Leading the program in his 5th year up to that point, we got the head coach Doc Holliday, who really had this offense playing some fun football, as they would average 45.6 points per game, which would be best for 3rd in the nation. And while the offense was explosive, the defense was just as good, only allowing 21 points per game, which was best for 21st in the nation. Real quick, Marshall fans, let me know down below in the comments, where does Doc Holliday rank all time for head coaches at Marshall? Moving over to the man behind the center, at quarterback we have Rakeem Cato, who would pass for just over 3,900 yards with an insane 40 touchdowns. At running back, leading the team in rushing was Devin Johnson, and his stats were just crazy, rushing for 1,767 yards with 17 touchdowns. Yo, this is amateur lore after the fact, and while I was doing research on this video and on this Marshall team, I learned that Devin Johnson passed away at the age of 25, so I just wanted to say RIP. And finally, to round out the offense at receiver, the team leader was Tommy Schuler, who'd catch 92 passes for 1,138 yards with 9 touchdowns. To open up the 2014 college football season, Marshall would roll out of the gate, winning their first 4 games of the season in dominant fashion, while dropping 40 points or more in each of those games. Starting off with the win over Miami, Ohio, 42-27, Rhode Island, 48-7, Ohio, 44-14, and shout out to quarterback Rakeem Cato, homie torched the Bobcat defense like a lighter for 425 yards with 4 touchdowns. Just straight up video game numbers. And finally, to finish off this 4-game stretch to open up the season, a 48-17 win against Akron. Sheesh, I don't know why, but Marshall was running the Ohio gauntlet. To start the year, 3 of their first 4 games of the season were versus Ohio schools. Now sitting at 4-0, Marshall was set to begin conference play, and their first matchup versus the Conference USA was against Old Dominion. And this is random, I had no idea about this, but y'all remember the former Washington Commander quarterback Tyler Heineke? Well, he was the starting quarterback for Old Dominion during this season. And even though he would help Washington make the playoffs back in 2020, he really didn't do much versus Marshall, as the Thundering Herd would be up 42-7 going into halftime, and nothing much would change after halftime, as Marshall would win 56-14. The Thundering Herd's level of competition was ramping up, as they were set to embark on a 4-game stretch of conference play versus Middle Tennessee, Florida International, Florida Atlantic, and finally to end this stretch, a road game versus Southern Mississippi. Marshall was on the brink of cracking the top 25 for the first time in 12 years. All they had to do was lock in and not lose a single game during this stretch. Could they do it?
Bastine, he had 2.5 sacks earlier this year against Old Dominion. Now a big hole on the left side. No sack here. Race. Cato going for it all. Builds this weekend. 2nd and goal.
And Johnson hit low, spins, it got in. The ball at the 1-yard line. Johnson still in the backfield. Cato wants to throw it, and there it is. On the season, Cato, 14 different receivers, 8 tonight. Cato somehow using his Fran Tarkenton moves got out of trouble, and here's Devin Johnson. And he's going to be off to the races. Touchdown.
I said, hey, Chad, if you're going to go down there and kind of, here we go with the big one here again for Marshall all the way.
Butler's going to take it to the house. He's inside the 15. Touchdown.
Let him do his thing. He's been emotional on that Marshall sideline straight away. Big run. You want a big play? You got it. Devin Johnson. Touchdown.
Under just over 3 minutes. Third quarter. Cato looking. Now sidelines it. Near sideline. Caught on his feet. On New Year's Day. They do look at the points up the middle. Walking in. Touchdown.
Now we're looking at a 1st and 10. They get to Stuart Butler, and he plows through. He's at the 20, 15. Breaks away into the end zone. Cato, 2nd and goal. Drops, looks, flips it in the end zone. A leaping kick and run it. And this time they give it to Pittman. And he finds an opening. He's at the 10, the 5. He's going in. Touchdown. Pittman scores.
Marshall would go perfect during this stretch, going 4-0, so let's go game by game real quick. Starting off with Middle Tennessee, the Blue Raiders would try their hardest to stay in this game, but the Marshall offense was just too much and would eventually pull away, winning 49-24. Next up was Florida International, and the only thing that would change during this matchup was the location, as Marshall would destroy the Panthers 45-13, in large part due to a 4-touchdown night from Hakeem Cato. From one South Florida school to another one, as the Thundering Herds' next matchup during this stretch was Florida Atlantic, and this would probably be Marshall's toughest game during this stretch, as they would be down 16-14 going into halftime, but would bounce back, coming out scoring 21 unanswered points to win the game 35-16. And finally, to end this stretch, a 63-17 blowout win against Southern Mississippi. Marshall was now sitting at 9-0 and would move up in the latest polls to the 24th spot in the country. The Thundering Herd were rolling and would keep the momentum up, winning their next 2 games against Rice and UAB, putting their record at 11-0, which takes us to one of the best games I'm sure majority of you have never seen. I'm not going to say much, just know Marshall versus Western Kentucky would be a Grammy-nominated football game.
Williams, just a sophomore, 6'6", 310. Dowdy lobs it into the corner, and a touchdown.
Their offensive coordinator, Bill Legg, told us, fun to watch.
Across the middle, and it's picked off. Down to the 35-yard line. Brandon keeps moving. It's Leston still heading forward. Moving with the foot. Start this thing. Western Kentucky. They can put their early foot on the throat. A lot of time scrambling into the end zone, and a touchdown.
This team out is a quick hit there to keep this drive alive.
7 pass plays already. Best buddies get together.
In any of the seasons he's been there, and he's still putting up the numbers he has.
Hey, we're talking about quarterbacks. There's quarterbacks all over the field in this one. Down the field it goes. Taywan Taylor.
And he'll know what he wants to come back to continue to attack.
He's got a receiver wide open, sliding with
chemistry that this offense has developed so well.
3 receivers on the high side. Into the corner of Marshall. Touchdown. Plenty of time. Diving with the touchdown.
See if Cato can find the win.
He's got time to throw. He's got a man. He's got the hands into the...
It is star quarterback.
So his running back, Devin Johnson, watching from the sidelines. And that was on that 10-yard line, as Coy mentioned, 2nd and goal. Allen's got some space to work with. He cuts back, fights his way. Did he get into that end zone? We wait. He did. 16 of 20 now. Over 230 yards. Down the far sideline he goes. Star back, Devin Johnson. Walking now across into the end zone for a touchdown.
We're still in this fight.
Butler delivers a few blocks. Across, throwing it small man, big hit. Pressure. He did get rid of it. As if it was picked off, and it was. On the season. Butler still back in there, running back across the 40, to the 30, to the 20. Butler, touchdown, Marshall. Butler, 142 rushing yards. He will add to that tally. He will add a journey to the end zone. A pair of wide receivers. Butler weaves, works, cuts back, and gets. Remy Watson is in on a play fake. Phone apple stretches into the end zone for a touchdown.
Success with that.
Cato now feels forced to throw again. Across his body, back the other way. Eluding and down the sideline goes Foster with the dive. He thought. Here's Marshall. Dowdy. Deep leaping grab in the back of the end zone. Touchdown. Rolling to his right. Quick strike. And they did it. Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia, and it is over for Marshall.
This game would take over 120 total points in overtime to decide a winner, and unfortunately Marshall would be on the losing end as the final score would be 67-66. I will say, going for 2 at the end of the game was ballsy as hell from Western Kentucky. Let me know down below in the comments, what's the highest scoring college football game you've ever seen? After the tough loss, Marshall would bounce back, taking down Louisiana Tech 26-23 in the Conference USA Championship game, putting their final record on the regular season at 12-1. All that was left was to cap off this incredible season with the bowl game win, and the last team that stood in the Thundering Herd's way was the Northern Illinois Huskies in the Boca Raton Bowl.
High but very short kick. This will be DeAndre Reeves from the 8-yard line. Sees a little bit of a seam, and Reeves down the sideline. 35-40. Reeves has the kicker to beat, and he does it. He jukes him out of his shoes, and Reeves will score.
I tell you what, that was
read fake.
Exactly,
like
and Cato kept it.
And Johnson this time keeps it. Gatorade Bass, should Marshall hang on here? It'd probably feel great.
You're right about that.
Throw toward the end zone. He's got a man at shoulder to get the foot down. Touchdown.
Some sort of all-star game or something.
Yeah, that could be. And here's Cato, and there's the end zone keeper. His second rushing touchdown.